Hi, this is Boone Slot Car Garage. Let's do this.
Hi, I'm Boone, and this is Boone Slot Car Garage. And tonight we're going to go ahead and do something that I didn't get a chance to document when I did it originally. And what that is a tunnel. We're going to build ourselves a tunnel. Yes, Deception does have a tunnel. It's this one right here. And this tunnel was built before I started the YouTube channel. So I never got a chance to document it or film it or anything else. And I do get some questions on how to go about building tunnels. So figured this is the perfect thing. We're starting all over again in a sense. So we might as well put a tunnel in. Now, I did think about taking this tunnel out and just redoing that area, but it's a cool tunnel. I couldn't bring myself to actually ripping it all back out. So what we're gonna do is I found a new area on the layout that we're gonna go ahead and build this tunnel. Now, on this area, well, it's right here, this area right here where the hill goes up and stuff, and the table comes off the top, we're gonna go ahead and put a tunnel right in here. Now, it's not the most ideal place for it. A lot of times tunnels, since it is sheltering the car from sight and everything else, ideally you want to have it going down a straightaway. So your car just kind of passes through it and it pops out at the other side, and there's, you know, hopefully it pops out on the other side, but there's no like trauma or anything that's going to happen within a tunnel. Well, this spot isn't exactly perfect because got a few things going on. We're coming around a corner, we're starting to go into another corner and then up a hill, and this tunnel's gonna be right there. So, it's kind of one of those. But Deception isn't exactly like a club racing track. So it's not like I have a bunch of buddies over and we're ripping around the track and racing. It's more like kind of like a diorama, but it's fun. You know, tracks like this are fun because you can kind of just put a car on the track and just cruise and just take it all in. But aside from that, that is the project that we have in store for tonight, a tunnel. So, yeah, it's gonna be kind of one of those things where we're probably gonna have to do this in multiple videos because this is gonna be a big project. You know, we're gonna have the tunnel going on. I want to go ahead and make it so it needs a tunnel. So what do we mean by that? Well, we need to put in some type of mountain or a hill or something along those lines that our tunnel's gonna pass through. So we have that as well. And we gotta put some bushes in there, gotta put some trees, gotta do static grass. And since it's gonna be in a certain area, we gotta throw some billboards on it too. So we gotta doll it all up. And it's not going to happen in one video because it would just be like one of those marathon videos. And I don't want to do that to you guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this in different series. So it's going to be a series of videos that we're going to go ahead and complete this section of the layout. So that was a tongueful. So with all that, if you haven't checked out the Patreon account, go over and check that out. It's really cool. The other thing is we have the Buy Me a Coffee app, and we have the Facebook group and the Instagram group. So come on over, check those out, but don't do it until the end of the video. All right? So, let's get busy and start doing this. So grab yourself a cup of joe, and you know, it's what? 6 a.m. in the morning, so it's not really time for popcorn, but a donut would be good. So coffee and a donut. Yeah, coffee donut time, all right? So let's do this. All right, so here we are. We're at the construction site. Got my minions with me, got my bulldozer. We're ready to rip some stuff apart. So this is the area that we're going to go ahead and do this whole entire project at. And it's, like I said, it's going to be kind of intense as far as what all needs to be done. You know, at first glance, you can look at this and go, boom, that's kind of a weird place for a tunnel. I mean, you got turns, you got all sorts of different, yeah, I know. Ideally, this is not the perfect place for it. For deception, it works great. Again, because it's more of a diorama than it is like a racing type of slot car track. The one of the thoughts you want to go into when doing a tunnel, okay, and this is important, all right, is tunnels are an area where you're going to lose sight of your car. Okay, so ideally you want it in an area that is going to be the safest for you to lose sight of your car. So what does that mean? Well, if it's a straightaway, it's pretty much a no-brainer. It's going to go in one side, it's going to pop out the other side in a split second, and there's not much that could go wrong inside of it. Okay, this a little bit different. We have corner coming in, we got contours, elevation differences, a dip, another corner right in here, it's going up a hill. There's a lot going on. Another thing to keep in mind with a tunnel is that if it's in an area that there is a chance that the car could come off the track, you want to make the tunnel in such a way that it's easy enough to marshal that area, okay? Last thing you want to do is put all this hard work into it and have a car that jumps off in there. Maybe you're running some cars with some friends or yourself, and you get a little bit hasty and you stick your hand in there to get the car, and you know, hit the edge of your tunnel, and all of a sudden you rip out some of your scenery. So it's kind of another thing to kind of keep in mind. Well, you know, tunnels are one of those interesting things, right? So enough with all that. Let's just kind of figure out what we got going on here. Now, we have 3 different levels. I have my lower level down here from the main straight. This area here where the actual tunnel is going to be. And then we have this upper section up on top. So the idea is to go ahead and put the tunnel right in this area. Now, this corner from the original Deception, before I moved it, came down the same way, but in this area was a hairpin corner, and it shot back into itself and went down a hill and then carried on to the lower part of the layout. So this being that it's changed, now what we need to do is, you know, I was kicking around, bobbing this around in my head as far as to figure all this out. So now that this is all changed and I want to put a tunnel here, there's certain parts of the scenery that aren't gonna quite work ideally with what I've envisioned. So what we're gonna need to do is that this cobblestone area through here, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out. So this area right here is gonna be gone. We're gonna keep the cobblestone down in the other section, but from here, I'm probably gonna slice it out and get rid of this opening and make this more into something as far as cliff face or rock outcropping to just kind of justify, kind of blend it in for the tunnel that we're gonna have here in the porthole opening. Tunnel openings are called portals. So the portal that's here that goes into the tunnel. So kind of all these different things that you gotta, you know, start figuring out. So you might want to go ahead and take some paper, kind of sketch it all out, or go online, start looking at a bunch of different tunnel ideas. Now, tunnels, if you go online, you're going to find a lot of stuff on real railroads, and the model railroads as well. Train guys love tunnels, and tunnels are really cool because they add that little extra, I don't know, that there's something kind of a romance about a tunnel. I think tunnels are really cool. So if you go online, you can go ahead and figure that out and kind of get those creative bugs and juices flowing through your brain to kind of get a visionary as far as what you want. Now, another thing that I do on top of all that is that I grab some scrap polystyrene, and this is some polystyrene that I have around the garage, and I just went ahead and rough cut an opening here to kind of get an idea. And just go ahead and set it in here like so. And I have my little support up on top. And there you go. You got kind of a makeshift tunnel that you can put onto your layout for a while, run your cars around it, and see if it works for you. This actually works pretty good for me because this section with all the different transitions and everything, the cars aren't going really fast. And the other thing is that I've painted the track with the one can operation, which is the grippiest, you know, as far as the paint track painting videos that I have, and I'll put that up right there. That video right there is what I use to do the surface of the track. And with the combination of the slower route that comes through here and with that type of high grip surface for track painting, it'll work. It'll work. I've ran the cars around here quite a bit, and actually I haven't jumped the track once. Fingers crossed, but I haven't jumped the track once in this area. So what I have here is my rough draft as far as my polystyrene. Now, one of the things that you want to keep in mind with a tunnel is that we got to kind of justify why the tunnel's here. You know, you just don't want to throw a tunnel out in the middle of the layout and go, ta-da, tunnel. No, to make it flow, it needs to, there's got to be a reason why there's a tunnel there. Is there because there's another track up on top and you need to do it that way, kind of a bridge / tunnel? Yeah, might be. Or like in this instance, I need to build something to justify that this is here. So we have the tunnel in this area. We're gonna have a cliff wall. And then up on top of this, we need to build up like some type of rock outcropping so that it kind of all works. You look at that and go, yep, that would be a good place for a tunnel. So that's kind of the brain wave that I got going on with this. So now that you see kind of where my thoughts and everything else are at with this thing, the next thing we need to do is figure out what type of tunnel we need to build. And what I mean by that is, like I said, there's tons of different types of portal openings that we can design. So let's go back to the table over there and let's start getting our polystyrene and everything going as far as what type of tunnel we're actually going to build. Okay, so now we're back down at the table and let's figure out what type of portal we want to go ahead and build. So like I said, there's tons of different photographs and stuff to use as reference on the internet. And let me go ahead and I'll just throw up a bunch right now. So you can see, I mean, you have modern, you have older styles, you have, I mean, it's just all sorts of different stuff, and railroad and automobile, and yeah, the list is just, I mean, you can just let your mind go crazy on this stuff. So the type of portal that I want to go ahead and build for deception is this one right here. And what that is the tunnel in Salzburg. And this is the tunnel that goes between the old, you know, going in and out of the old city. And I was there years ago and I just thought this tunnel was really cool as far as the opening. It always stands out inside my head. A big cliff and this tunnel that was just carved out of the cliff. I just thought that was just so cool. So I'm not going to go ahead and make a complete replica of it. I'm not going to go ahead and put like the statue figures and stuff and all that, but I like the way that the opening is as far as the brickwork and how it's all kind of carved and whatnot. So I'm just going to kind of use that as my basis to work off of. Now, we come back to the table. Here we go right here, and I have a piece of scale electric straight track here, and I have my makeshift porthole that I used for just kind of getting my brain juices flowing on the layout. And why I'm doing this portion right here is that if you can see with this, it's pretty tight, okay? Now, if this was a straightaway, that wouldn't be, you know, it's not going to be that much of an issue. You can get it fairly tight to the track and still be okay. The one thing that you do want to watch out for when doing this though is you see the side here, okay? And you want to make sure that your sides are up far enough that your tallest vehicle is going to be able to pass through here and not have any issues, not going to have contact. So if you're using pretty much just all sports racing cars or something like that, obviously the tunnel doesn't need to be that tall. But say you have some custom built slot cars like I do that have like the big wings and stuff on them, the old Can-Am cars, or if you have, say, the Carrera trucks, okay? Well, the trucks are kind of bigger than a car. So my suggestion is to get the biggest vehicle that you have and use that to help as far as to figure out how high you need to make the side of the porthole. Because, you know, you go ahead and you build a tunnel and all of a sudden you take one of those bigger vehicles and you run it through and it comes to the tunnel and it crashes into the side of it. Well, it's kind of like, coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? So kind of that's just one of the things you want to think of is, you know, you want to build it for a multitude of different size slot cars that go through. Now with Scalextric, I pretty much only have to worry about 1/32 scale, and I mean I can run 1/43 as well on Scalextric. But a Scalextric track is right around 6 1/8 inch wide, or that would be like 15.55 centimeters wide. Okay, so it's kind of on the smaller side of all the 1/32 scale tracks. Like Carrera is 7.79 inches wide, or 19.78, so a little bit wider than this. And Polycar is 7.08 inches wide, or 17.98 centimeters wide. And why I'm kind of stating those out is that I'm going to be building this off of Scalextric. And if you have Carrera or if you have Polycar, take that into mind when you're going ahead and building this all out, that your track is going to be wider than what my track is. And if you have HO, you have nothing to worry about, because HO is a lot smaller than what this is. Probably fits right in between the center of this. So what we need to go ahead and do now that we kind of have that all figured out is we need to go ahead and get our tools together and our materials to figure out what we're going to need to do to start this project. Okay, so what do we got in front of us? We got a whole bunch of tools. So if you're looking at the screen right now, you're going, wait a minute, you got like 3 rulers in front of you, a pen, 2 pencils, what? Well, a lot of times with myself it was kind of like that adage where, you know, you look into a guy's toolbox and he might have like 3, 4, maybe 10 hammers, right? Is it that he collects hammers? No, not so much. But, you know, sometimes when you're building something and it's just not going your way, you know, if you switch the tool, sometimes it just helps. It's kind of funny, you know, it's like that mental thing, like it's the tool's fault, right? It's not your fault, it's the tool's fault. Well, I kind of fall into that category sometimes. So that's kind of a side note off to the side. You get to know a little bit more about Boone. But what I have here are rulers, okay? And the rulers that you need, you want something with a finer measurement, right? So like a millimeter type of ruler, or per se centimeter. It'd be kind of hard to do it with inches because, well, you can do it with inches, but you might want to fine tune it a little bit more. So a good centimeter ruler is a good rule of thumb. Also, I have a square, a triangle. I have a compass, a little bit of a makeshift caliper, and I also have some string, okay? Now, the string and the compass go hand in hand with each other, and I'll get to that point. If you have a compass, great. You probably won't need the string. But if you don't have a compass, you're going to need the string. So we'll explain that when we get there. Also, a soldering iron, again, there's a tape measure and a bunch of different cutting utensils. I have like, you know, a paring knife, a razor blade knife, a little pocket knife, another razor knife, and even a putty knife. So lots of ways to cut yourself there. And we also have 3 different grits of sandpaper. I have some 36 grit, which is real strong stuff. Also have some 60 and some finer stuff, 220. So cool thing about the sandpaper is it helps you just kind of fine tune stuff, you know, as far as getting that little extra bit that you need. And the one major thing that we need is our polystyrene. Now I have polystyrene, I haven't cut it, and it's in a big block, so I don't want to bring that out, otherwise the screen's just going to go pink and I go la la polystyrene. So instead of doing that, I'll just explain it this way. And this again is the little porthole that I made for roughing in everything, and this is high density polystyrene. And what I mean by that is, if you look at this, you see how it's real tight, okay? There is other polystyrenes that are out there. And let me go ahead and bring this out. This is, you know, the famous white polystyrene that you see. Now, if you look at the edge of this stuff, you see how rough it is, okay? You're not gonna get as clean of a cut or anything else with this, okay? You try to sand on this, it just starts to yeah, it's a big mess, okay? Not to say that this doesn't make a mess too, but this is really hard stuff to work with. So being as such what we're trying to build, you really want the high density polystyrene. And this comes in, you can buy it in smaller portions, or you can buy it in 4x8 sheets of polystyrene. So this is the wonderful stuff that we're gonna use today. And there we go. We've got our tools all set out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut my piece of polystyrene, and when we come back, we'll start figuring out our porthole opening. Okay, so I have my piece of polystyrene cut out. You notice I got some lines on it. I'll get to that. So I cut this at 11 inches by 11 inches. That fits the area that works for me up there. Your measurements might be a little bit different. Now, the lines that are in here, I found my center point with this one right here, okay? And then I also, these 2 lines right here are the width of the track, okay? So I just went ahead and measured off on both sides, scribed that in. So then I have those as reference points, okay? Then what I need to do is find out how wide I want to make the opening that the track is going to set through. Now I decided to go with 3/4 of an inch on both sides. Or that would be roughly about 2 centimeters, okay? So I went out about 2 centimeters on both sides and went ahead and scribed a line. Now, that'll be the actual opening of my porthole. So now that I have that, the other thing I need to do is figure out the height that I need. And remember, I was talking about the type of cars and everything else that you have as far as height goes. So that's one of those things that you kind of need to look at to figure out what's going to clear and what's not. So I went ahead and just came up, let's see here. I came up roughly about 9.5 centimeters on both sides, and I went ahead and made a mark. Now my first inclination or first idea was to come up to 12.5 centimeters on both sides. The only issue with that is then this is what this upper arc is, and it puts it a lot higher than I wanted. I want a little bit more of a fascia up in this area to do, you know, some work there, and I didn't want the porthole to be really big because we still got to build on top of it and everything else. So I just sized it down a little bit to give me the amount of space up here that I wanted. Now, after you have all those measurements set, go ahead and take your compass and have it, you know, set as far as the size that you need, and just go ahead and scribe your lines in there as far as your arc. Now, if you don't have a compass, remember I was talking about the string earlier? Well, you can make yourself a makeshift compass. So you just need 2 nails, some string, go ahead and set this in the middle, figure out your distance, and then just go ahead and, you know, scribe it that way. So this is a good alternative. It's not as easy to do if you have a compass, but if you don't have a compass, this works. So there we go. So now what I need to do, that I have everything figured out, is I need to go ahead and slice out the inside. So what I'm doing is just taking a razor knife, and I'm making multiple cuts. I'm not trying to do it all at one time. I'm just doing one slice and then come back over and just slowly work it down. That way it gives me a nice clean cut, okay? If you force it a lot of times, you're gonna get a cut like this where it's kind of all haggard and everything. So if you're going for more of a clean cut, just go ahead and just work it down slowly, and you'll end up with a cut like that. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and cut this out, and we come back, we'll see what it looks like. At this point, I have the center cut out, so we'll save that, stick it off to the side, and there it is. So we have a rough end as far as our portal goes. Now the inside, it might be a little bit rough. Just go ahead and take your sandpaper, you know, your 220 or your 120 and 36 or 60, and just dress it up. I mean, your cut might not be real square. You can go ahead and just kind of slightly sand it and just kind of square it all up so that it looks good. Now, after we have it like this, we'll go back up to that area and see what it looks like, and we'll figure out what we need to do next. So our minions were hard at work. They went ahead and ripped out everything. So we got that all cleared out. But went ahead and set the porthole up here and put in this back piece that's gonna take the place of where that cobblestone was at. And then what I'd like to do is turn this into like a cliff wall eventually when we get to that point. And I'm almost thinking that might be cool to make a little mine shaft, but we'll see what happens there. But to get back to what our portal right here, so we've got this cut and it's fit in there to where everything is looking good. Now, the next thing we need to do is start building the sides and figuring out how deep we want to take this. Now, my hill up on top to justify this portal is we're going to be pretty tall. This is going to be a heck of a structure over here on this corner. So what we've got is this in there. Next thing we need to do is go ahead and build our walls on both sides, and then we need to make another porthole on the back side. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and figure out my walls on this area. And then once I have that all established, we'll come back and we'll see what it looks like. I'll get the back portal cut, and I will get the sides cut as well. And that's going to be pretty much straightforward. Each tunnel is going to have its unique character as far as how high and how long it's going to be. So I don't really think we need to per se video that, because they're just going to be slabs of polystyrene. So I'll go ahead and get that cut, and when we come back, we'll have that all fitted, and we'll take it from there. All right, so there it is, and we got it all kind of roughed in, and you can see I have the tape on there to hold it into place, just so I can make sure everything lines up, and yeah, so I can give it kind of one last once over and just make sure everything's fitting. So you can see the side walls that I put in there. Had to make multiple cuts on these because of how many different things are going on. And then I made a different type of portal for this side. This area right here is just setting in there, actually. Let me take that out. But this gap that's in here, what I'm gonna end up doing is putting a piece of wood back here because I don't have much depth. If I bring this up, you can see I don't have much depth. So what I'm gonna do is put a piece of wood there, and then we can come back and I can build a retaining wall that comes all the way up to the top of the hill. So, but I just wanted to go ahead and show you this. You can see how, yeah, multiple cuts. Had to go ahead and get that to lay underneath there. But everything's starting to take shape. So at this point, what I need to do is to go ahead and get my base structure in now. So if you look down at the bottom, you can see that the sides are laying pretty much on the wood table. So what I plan on doing is cutting some polystyrene and laying a base all the way through there that comes up. So if we look on this side, I went ahead and put a guardrail in there. And that's pretty much what I'm gonna do on the inside or the outside of that is the guardrail. And that guardrail works really good because if the car does get a little bit loose, it can slide down that guardrail and it won't damage the polystyrene or any of the modeling that we do on the inside there. So this is where we are at right now. And we come back, I will have the base all put into it, and we can start getting this thing wrapped up. So I have my little bit of base panels all cut and sized in there. Now I took the 1-inch polystyrene and I sliced it down the middle. And I just took a hacksaw and sliced it just right down the middle to give me 2 halves. Now, with this, I just went ahead and contoured it to the edge of the track. And then I'm just taking some hot glue and then just put some hot glue on this guy. And we just glue it right down into place. So, just like that, take this, just set it right down like so. And then this is working as our border around the track. And then also what it's doing is securing the track into place too, so it won't shift or anything else. So I'm gonna get this glued up, and then what we need to do is come back and contour these a little bit so that they line up nicer to the track edge. And then once we do that, we can go ahead and start playing around with our tunnel as far as finishing off the look of that. So now I went ahead and I have this all glued down, so hot glue around the edge on the polystyrene. And now what I need to do is final this off and go ahead and cut it down to the surface level of the track. So what I'm using is a razor knife, and I'm just coming in at a slight angle, and the tip of the blade is right here on the edge of the track, okay? So just right here on the edge, and just trim that back, just so it creates a little bit of a shoulder to it. So let me get that. And what this does, it just contours it right up into it. So this area, which is a little bit higher, what I can do is come in from this side, slice it back, like so. Might as well just take it all the way up. And then, again, come in at an angle and find that edge and just peel this back. And try to do it smooth, but it's okay because we're going to come in with some joint compound and sandpaper and sand this down and put joint compound, and that will level everything out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. When we come back, we'll finish off that part. So now I have it trimmed in and it's down flush with the track. You notice I went ahead and put some masking tape here right on the edge, and I just want to protect the track a little bit. I'm going to take some sandpaper and sand this right around here And if I come off and I hit the track, I just like to, you know, protect it, since I did go ahead and paint the track and everything. So pretty much with this is 60 grit, and I'm just gonna come in and kind of level everything out. Just kind of finish off, because you're gonna have some knife marks, cut marks. So we're just kind of blending those out. So I'm gonna come in, hit this lightly, and just kind of smooth it all out. Let me show you here. And you can see my paper is actually on the edge of the track here. So if I do that, I can sand the surface so then it's up flush. Now, you might be wondering why I didn't just take a large sheet and just do a continuous run, right? Well, nice thing about smaller sections is that A, they're easier to work, since we're hot gluing it. If you had a large section in here, trying to maneuver that in can be a little bit difficult. And the other thing is, with a small section, I can contour it easier to the track. So I can kind of support it there and hold it right where I want it to be while it dries. So if you're kind of wondering why I didn't do a large area, that's kind of the reason behind that. That's the madness behind that. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this sandpaper and I'll blend this out the rest of the way, and we come back, we'll just go ahead and hit this lightly with some joint compound. And after that point, then it's ready to go ahead and start with the tunnel and finish up all our ornate work that we need to do. We'll finish this portion up, the base, when we set the tunnel down in here, you'll see. But we'll set the tunnel down in here with the top open, and then we can finish off this lower area. So right now, I'll go ahead and get this all done, and then we'll go ahead and put the joint compound on it, and then we'll go ahead and finish off all our brickwork and everything on that tunnel. Okay, so now I'm just coming in with some drywall joint compound and a brush, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just smooth out the edge of this. So if you notice, I'm kind of going on to the tape as well. The tape's right down to the edge of the track. And what I'm going after is pretty much that inner strip right through there, that when you look into the tunnel, you'll see on the sides. Plus, with the guardrail, you need to go ahead and mount that in there as well. So that's later on. But a nice thing about the polystyrene is that it gives us a good mount for our guardrail when we put it in. When all the little nails get in there, it'll really anchor it into place. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hit this just lightly, and I'm just dressing up these seams so that we can't see them. We're hiding them all out. And yeah, so it'll take a little while for this to dry, and we'll get over there and start playing with that tunnel again. Okay, so we're back at the table, and I have my first portal here, and this is the main one that's going up the hill. And this one's the most intense out of the two. The other one, we'll do that one as well, but this one is a lot more, it has a lot more to it. If you look at it, you can see a bunch of lines and everything else that I've drawn onto this. And what I've done is I've used a picture of the Salzburg tunnel as reference on my tablet, and I'm just trying my best to go ahead and transfer them over to this. Now, obviously, this isn't to exact scale. The Salzburg, let me get rid of that. The Salzburg tunnel is a lot taller, okay? So it had a lot taller opening than what we have here. So it kind of throws some of the proportions off a little bit. So when you're faced with stuff like this, you just kind of wing it and see what we got, right? So what I'm gonna do is I went ahead and scribed out all my different lines. There's different heights that I'm gonna have to work through here to get some of the beveling and stuff onto the stonework. So the best way to do it is I'm just going to go ahead and take my razor knives and stuff, cutting, just kind of working my way around with this. I really don't know how long this little guy is going to take me. After looking at that photo, it's pretty intense. As you can tell, I've already have quite a bit of different lines down here. A couple of these are mess ups in here. I was trying to work out as far as proportions. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and get this all carved. Again, it's just a matter of researching your photos, finding out where your depths are at and everything else, cutting those out and kind of bringing it, bringing it out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. When we come back, if you see here on the top, it has some different ornate pieces up here on the brim. And then it has kind of like a pillars and stuff. This type of stuff in here, I'm actually going to do with balsa. I'm actually going to take balsa wood and glue it onto this so we can get that raised, fascia effect onto this. So when we come back, I'll have it carved and we'll start looking at what we can do as far as balsa wood to kind of jazz it up a little bit. Okay, so we're back and I'm about 2.5 hours into this, and that's where I'm at right now. And so what I've been doing is just taking X-Acto knives and stuff like that and just cutting away, just slowly just picking at it, slicing it down. And it's a tedious job, but it's turning out pretty cool looking. Now, at this point right here, what I want to do is go ahead and create the top portion of this in these certain areas, the top of the pillars and the cap that goes across here. So what I've done is just kind of picked out some multiple different pieces of balsa wood, and my madness of thinking here is that if I can get this to lay a certain way like that, I then can create the crown, the crown molding up on top, or whatever they call that. I'm not sure what they call that up on top, but we can go ahead and finish it off with balsa. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and glue this all down. I'm going to use super glue and get that all in there. And then plus on the tops of these posts right here, right on this top one, there is, let's see here, let me blow this up. There's a little bit of a cap right up here that I need to figure out. So that stuff I'm just going to go ahead and do with balsa wood and glue it on with super glue, some good old Gorilla Glue. And yeah, I mean, if you want to put the hours in to do something a little bit different, that's kind of the way you do it. And I know I didn't show you guys while I was going all the way through, and pretty much what I'm doing is just going through and just taking your time and just picking away, just slicing at it and picking the stuff out. And then obviously I came back with a few different things, even used a flat file. And I found a file actually fit really good right into that groove, and I was able to square up the sides and everything else. So multiple tools, just let your creativity go and just kind of have fun with it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we come back, we just need to go ahead and finish off this brickwork here, which I need to do with my soldering iron. And then it's ready for some joint compound and a little bit of finish sanding. And then we'll move on to the other porthole, which will be a lot easier than this one. Okay, so here we go. Went ahead and I got my balsa all put in up above, so I got the crown area all done and finished off down here on the sides all the way around. And you can see it's just a matter of just cutting and just working it slow. Now what we need to do is right up in here we have brickwork that comes right across. So I've done these two, but I still need to do these ones over here. And what we're gonna do is just with a soldering iron, and we're gonna go ahead and kiss that and just make that brick. Now, when you open up polystyrene, okay, so when it's all roughed up, it burns really quick. So you need to use like a light touch and just go on through. So just lightly do it like this. You can see how that just opens it right up. So just like that. And then I'll just do the inside right here. Bring that down. And there we go. We got our bricks. So I'll go ahead and finish off this one here. And then when that's complete, then we just need to go ahead and take joint compound. Let me get my soldering iron put down. So then we're gonna take joint compound and put joint compound on this. So these areas in here are roughed up. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and finish this, and then I'll come back and I'll start applying some of this joint compound. I'll show you guys how I do that. Okay, so now we're ready to go ahead and put our joint compound on here. And like I said, we have some areas that has finished stone and some areas that has rough stone. So what I'm gonna do is, first off, I'm gonna go ahead and let's do this area in here because we have a little combination of both. This is finished stone, that's rough, and these bricks down here are rough. And then on the insets, these are finished. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get this right down inside. And the cool thing about joint compound is that we can use it as a filler, just like this. You gotta watch out for a balsa, but I'm gonna go ahead and get that down in there and fill in all these gaps like so. So we can get rid of all those holes from the cuts. It's a little tough back in here. It takes a little bit of doing to get it into certain areas. And then when we're dealing with real fine features, so let me get this in there first. Okay, so we get this loaded up with some joint compound, and then we'll come in and show you guys what I'm talking about. So get this in here like so. Now, since we have this all in, I'll just go ahead and take this little guy. This works pretty good. And if we have any area, say right here, I have some balsa that has a joint compound on it, just go ahead and make sure you just take your time and clean off all that stuff now, because it'll make your life a lot easier after. So if it's all kind of cleaned up now, you don't have to come in afterwards and try to get this hardened stuff over on the side. Just take advantage of it being wet. So being that this is all finished stone, just go ahead and scrape that, kind of sharpen up your corners like so. Now, you can kind of see how I did that finished area. Now let's go in and say this. So we have our rough stone. So we got our finished stuff here. Let me get that in here. And I like to work just kind of, a few little areas at one time, just like so. I don't want to cover the whole entire thing and then try to work it. I'd just rather do it in just little sections. So first off, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to clean up these edges so they're nice and crisp. Okay. Now, say this is that rough stone. I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to kind of give it a little bit more texture right there. Okay, so if we do that, kind of hit here on the sides, let me hit this one too, and then I'll bring it up and you guys can see what it looks like. Come on, trying to get a little bit more texture out of that. There we go. Okay, so if I bring that up, you can see how that's all rough and then how it's smooth in here. And then once this all dries, we can come in with some 220 sandpaper and lightly kiss that just to get rid of some of the brush marks that are down in there. And then when we go ahead and paint it,
it'll have a really cool effect. We'll have these areas that are rough, and then we'll have the finished stone. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna finish this all out, and while this is drying, we'll go ahead and grab the other porthole, and it's gonna be a lot easier than this one. I just wanted to go ahead and try something with this, and it turned out pretty cool. So on the other portal, we'll go ahead and start on that as soon as we come back. Okay, so we're back, and before we get started on this portal, let's go ahead and let's get back to this guy real quick. It's all nice and dry. I let it set overnight, and just want to go over some sanding with you guys real quick. And then what we can do is set this off to the side, and then when it comes to the assembly and painting, we'll see this guy again. But for right now, let's go ahead and let's start taking care of some of that the smooth stone that's on here that I was going over. Remember, we had these areas in here that are rough, okay? And then these areas in here, like this, is all finished stone. So what I'm doing is I have a little bit of 220, so I cut it off. There's 220 sandpaper, and I just cut it off in a little tiny little bit like that, and just kind of fold it over. And then it's just a matter of just coming in to these little areas and just sanding it off. And this joint compound sands really easy, so it doesn't take much of just, you know, going through and dressing up stuff, and it starts to turn out pretty nice. I mean, if you can see that, this area in here is all sanded. This is sanded, sanded here, sanded there, but this is all still rough. I don't know if you can tell the difference between those two. Maybe up in here, I've sanded this area up in here versus this area. So it knocks it down nicely. And then around the balsa and that type of stuff that I put on there, just kind of come in, use the edge of it, and just dress up those areas and clean up, you know, your lines and stuff that are in that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and finish this real quick, and then we come back, we'll start figuring out what we're gonna do with this little tiny guy.
So we're back, and we have the second portal that we need to build. Now, I've gone through a few different designs right here. Throw those off to the side. You know, sometimes it's kind of hard. I don't know. For me, sometimes, you know, you've got so many different ideas running through your head. It's like, you know, trying to come up with the one that you want to use sometimes gets a little bit difficult. But, you know, thank goodness I have some good friends here in the slot car community that I can bounce things off of, and they can help me rattle my brain around it to get back on track. So my thank on this one goes out to Mike. Mike helped me out last night, and yeah, I've got a plan of attack now. So what we have here is the second portal, and the first one, let me grab that, is pretty intense. I mean, this is an intense portal that we built. So the second one right here is going to be a little bit more simplified and a little bit simpler of a design. And what I've done is I've just kind of done some sketch marks through it as far as kind of getting an idea. I want to do some brickwork around the opening here. I'm thinking about that I'm going to cut this down in here to give a little bit of depth, you know, onto it, just kind of recess it a little bit, and then have some pillars on the outside of here that they're going to be up. And so my first line of attack is just kind of sketching things out, putting my lines down and stuff, so I have my cutting lines on what I want to do, and just start chopping polystyrene and see what happens. So what I'm going to do to start out with is that I'll go ahead and cut the areas that are going to be recessed first. So this pocket in here is going to be recessed. So what I want to do is go ahead and cut on my lines here and get that set down first. So what I have, and I found this thing works great, and this is just a little modeling knife. And
what we'll do is I will, let's see here, work around the camera here, but I'm just going to go down and try to keep it about a centimeter deep. Okay. So, and how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to poke it down in so where I get the depth that I kind of want. Support it with my lower finger here. So my lower finger is laying on the polystyrene, and then support the blade. Okay. So I'm going to use this lower finger as my guide, my depth guide. And I have the blade is actually laying against this right here. And this just kind of helps because if you try to freehand it, you're going to have just kind of a real wavy cut. But if you're able to utilize your digit here, your finger, as a guide point, you can rest that upon it, put a little bit of pressure on it, and then hold it down and just bring it this way, and it should work. Come on, cut. There we go. Now we're cutting a little bit. It's kind of hard to do it from this angle, but we'll just bring this right down through here, like so. And there we go. So I'll cut that. I'll go ahead and cut these up. When we come back, I'll show you how we get that material out of there. Okay, so I went ahead and I have this material taken out. You can see how far I've taken it down, quite a bit. Now, with the cut, it's smooth and everything else, but it was a little bit, a little bit wavy. So I took a little bit of sandpaper and just kind of dressed that out to get kind of an equal plane across here. Now, the way that I'm taking it out is with this knife. Again, I came down, let's see here, about that far, about a centimeter in, okay? And it's the same over here. So at this point, I'm taking a larger razor knife. I'm trying to do this without cutting myself while I'm trying to do this. But I'm gonna set it in right here at the bottom part of that cut, okay? Setting the blade flat. Now, obviously you don't wanna do this suspended up in the air, but I'm just trying to do it so I can show you guys. And just gonna work this in and try to keep it flat, okay? So I'm coming right across like so. Okay, so let me go ahead and set this down so I don't lose a finger in the process. Let me set the camera back a little bit. There we go. Okay, so now I got that in. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna work this blade in, just kind of sawing it and keeping that same distance through here. And I'm going to take it all the way over to that cut. So we'll take this down and just take your time with it and just work the blade in slow. You'll see now the blade's in further than I went over here. So now I got it over here, and I'm going to take the blade and I'm going to turn it so I can match up to this cut here. So now I'm going to bring it back. Just kind of eyeball it in, and now I'm kind of even with that cut. So then I'll bring it out. And now I'll do what the Boy Scouts told you never to do, is cut towards yourself. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I slid it in. And now we're gonna do is we're gonna slowly work it back. Now I got it to this point right here. Now comes the fun part of just bringing this up. And we're just gonna pop this out. So I'm gonna bring this back, pull this up, and take our material out, okay? And now you can see that we're beveling that down. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear out this. And the second thing we wanna do is I'm gonna have a couple different heights going on here. So I've got this here, but I wanna make sure that these pillars up here stand out. So what I need to do next is this area through here, this brickwork, I wanna take that down just a little bit. So When we come back, we'll go ahead and cut this area. All right, so now I've got this cut down. You can see I hadn't sanded that, okay? So when it cuts, you can see how it kind of gives it's kind of a cool effect, you know? But let's go ahead and clean that all off. Now, I was talking about this area through here, okay? Now, I also use different types of knife. I've got this little tiny pocket knife. Works good for down in these little, you know, little areas like that. I can get it down in there. So, I mean, you just kind of go into your drawer, grab whatever cutting utensils you have, and just, you know, whatever you feel comfortable with. These blades are really light. These retractables, okay? Because I can go ahead and put this all the way out like that. And when I'm laying it, that blade can be down inside there. I'm not having to try to fight, you know, like this, where it's sideways, because what that's gonna do is gonna toe in, and it's gonna really start making some real bad gouging in here. So if I'm able to run my blade all the way out, I can set it down on a level plane and go ahead and cut that out. So one of these retractable razor knives this is a great tool for modeling. Now, this second area through here, we're gonna do it the same way. So I'm gonna start with my little X-Acto blade here. And since I've already cut this, all I have to do is just cut this little area here. So I've got this, so I'm gonna cut across here, like so. And then we're gonna bring this one up here. This blade's getting kind of dull. I need to replace it. It's not cutting real smooth. It's gotten its work done. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so I cut here, cut there. Now what I'm gonna do is come back with my retractable, and we don't want to go as deep as we were up here. We want to go a little bit shallower. So I am going to go just probably about a ½ centimeter, since we were down a full centimeter deep on the other one. I'm just going to work this through. And just bring this across. Make sure that I'm up. Bring this through here. See where we're at there. And this area down here, I want to be a little bit careful because we're dealing with kind of a thin piece on the leg. Bring this like so, and now we pull this upper portion off here. Whoop. And there we go. We've got kind of a beveled cut here. So we got different heights. So I'm going to go ahead and do that over on the other side. And we come back, we'll figure out the next thing we're going to do to this. Okay, so now we've got everything pretty much cut out. And I went ahead and made a bevel up here on the top. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this area quite yet, but I got some ideas running through my head. So it's kind of one of those things, you know, you start cutting away at this, and I'm not going off a picture. I'm just kind of going, I don't know, get some creative sauce going through the brain. So just kind of going on the whim here. But what I'd like to do is use this area as unfinished brick, so kind of a rough face. And then this area in here is going to be like finished brick or finished stone. So my next plan of attack here is to go ahead and to figure out as far as the bricks up in this area and then the bricks through the archway. Okay, so what I'd like to do is run these bricks a little bit bigger, kind of like a larger, you know, kind of set brick across this area. And then this area up in here, I'm probably going to go with like a smaller style of brick. So what I plan on using is, again, trusty little ruler. And I'm just going to go through here and make some marks. So I'm going to figure that about a 2 centimeter style brick through here would work out. Yeah, it would work out good. So that'll give me a nice proportion as far as the archway. And I'm just going through here and I'm just making some dots to kind of keep my spacing correctly. Okay, so I'm just going through like that, and then once I get it to that point, I'll just take my Sharpie and just make a light line as far as where that's going to go. So I just kind of go like this, and then up in here, and I don't want to go straight across. I want to go with the arch. So instead of being this one down here, I'm actually going to come up, so it makes more of an angled line. I'm going to follow the arch. So like this, and like that. You can kind of see the way this is shaping right here. Now, once we have this all the way through, let me jump to this area. So up in here, obviously, we're going to run a smaller brick. Now, this was at 2 centimeters. And this one right here, I'm going to give it a spacing of 1 centimeter. So I have a line. Okay, let me show you guys. Okay, so there's a line that goes through here. And the reason for that is that, like I showed you at the beginning, I had a bunch of different trials and errors. Well, this was one that I put up there and I started looking at it and I thought, I need to add on to the top of it. So I actually sliced off a piece of polystyrene and then hot glued this on top just to give me a little bit more height. But knowing that I was going to use bricks through here, that natural line is going to work out for me. So what I will do is, the spacing up on here is 4 centimeters from the top to that. So what I'll do is just go ahead and put a couple little dots like so, and then one right over here. And then I'll just connect the dots, and that will give me my rows of bricks up here. Like this. Hang on, I'll get there. So there's that. Okay, so I got my lines for my bricks, right? Now, these guys were at 2 centimeters. These guys, I'm gonna run, since they're a centimeter apart, I'm gonna run these guys at 1.5 centimeters. So obviously this is at an angle. I want to take it off of this side over here, so the flat corner, and I'm just going to do the upper row. Okay, so again, I'm going to go and put a dot at every 1.5 centimeters. That's at that. That's it. Okay, right there. Okay. So now that I got those, I'll bring this guy up. And I have my first line. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the difference between these two. So I'm going to go right in the half portion here. Half portion, half, half, half. And this one's going to be about right there. Okay? So now I've got my first line, and you just go ahead and carry this down. Once you have your line established, you can just go ahead and go on through like this and get your lines all set up. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and finish up all my scribing on my brickwork. When we come back, we'll go ahead and start figuring out the sides. Okay, so I have all my brickwork laid out as far as all the scribing of the lines. And I have this all done through here. And I've also carried those lines down into the inside. So when we're up here like this, we want to be able to look inside here and see that the lines are, you know, the brickwork's going all the way around. So now here on the sides, I've been thinking about this, and what I think I'm going to do is if you see the height here, okay, so it's fairly good sized stone, I'm going to carry that kind of block work all the way up here to the top, so on both sides. Now if you notice, this side is cut back, okay. The reason for this is because where I'm placing it on the layout, it's up against another wall, and what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to create a block retaining wall that's going to come off of this, and it's going to follow the upper table. So this area through here, just kind of disregard that. Let's concentrate over here. But I'm going to mimic the same type of effect over on this side as well, because we are going to be able to see it a little bit. So that's one thing with this, is just take your time, kind of go through it. As far as your measurements go, with something like this, really make sure your measurements, double check your measurements and everything else, because it's a very proportionate piece, okay? If you're off a little bit, that's going to be amplified as you go through, okay? So just kind of keep that in the back of your head when you're doing it. Just take your time, make sure that your measurements are right, and just go through your measurements. So when it's all said and done, it's, you know, it looks uniform, it looks okay. Just don't look at this side. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and measure this off down on this one side, and my base block is sitting at 4 centimeters. So I think what I'm going to do is keep this 4 centimeter type of look going all the way up on this one side. And if you noticed, if I bring this out, I don't know if you can see it, it's wider down here at the bottom, and it's tapering up as it goes up. And also I went ahead and notched it up here on the sides, on both sides. And the reason behind that is that, like this other portal that we built, and we had this molding, you know, the balsa that was up on top, I'm going to do kind of the same effect on this one, just so it kind of matches the other one. I didn't want something that looked too drastically different than the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out some different moldings up on top here. But for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and get this block work figured out on the side. So when we come back, we'll go ahead and warm up our soldering iron, and we'll get all our block work cut. So that's what we'll do when we come back. Okay, so at this point, I got my trusty soldering iron all fired up, and I've done one side of it so far. So I've taken our lines, and I've taken the soldering iron, and then went ahead and scribed onto those lines. And you can see how it just creates that brickwork for us. Really cool. So real easy to do. If you've seen my other videos, this is going to be, you know, whoops, I'm sorry guys, I kicked the camera. If you've seen my other videos, you've seen this technique before, but if you haven't, well, here we go. So take a soldering iron, real light touch, because polystyrene, you're melting the styrene with the heat of the soldering iron. So, and another thing is this polystyrene that is untouched, okay, hasn't been sanded or anything else, is going to melt differently than the stuff that we've opened the surface on, okay? So this is actually going to melt a little bit slower than with this. I mean, we're just talking a fraction of a second difference, but when you're dealing with something like this, that little fraction of a second does make a difference. So let me go ahead and I'll just do the first line up here so you kind of get an idea. Now this has been open, so it has an open face to it, and I'm just gonna take the soldering iron here. Let me go ahead and zoom this out just a little bit. So here, get this out a little bit. All right, so I'm just got a light touch, and I'm just going to come right over the top and just bring it right up, okay? And I don't want to dive it in too deep, and you can see how fast that just melts. Now, let's see, I got one right here on the edge. Just lightly hit it. And you'll notice that with the stuff that's open face, as you get the soldering iron close to it, and if you're going slow, you'll actually see the polystyrene start to affect to it. It'll start to melt just from the heat of the soldering iron getting close to it. Well, here, I'll show you. So this little guy right here, if I get this guy up close to it, it starts to already start to affect it. So now with this one scribe line here, I'm just going to try to do it in one little dash going over like so. And there we go. We got our first line of brick, okay? And I just follow that down through. Now, with the stuff here on the side, same idea. Just come straight across. Straight across. Okay, so we got that. Now, also think about this. You're looking at it from the face, but we have this area right down here on the side we want to do. So let's go ahead and make sure we hit that as well. So it looks like our brickwork's going around, you know, it's all the way through. So this guy even down here in the corner, same thing. So we hit that. And since this is an exposed wall, okay, so this is going to be out and there's going to be a cliff on this side, we want to make sure that we do the same thing over here. So I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to follow this straight through like so. And I'm actually going to even wrap it just a little bit here on the side, just so it gives just that much more definition of our bricks. So when this is mounted up, and depending on how far this cliff goes, I don't know if I'm going to have this exposed or if it's going to be partially covered up. Don't know yet. So what I want to do though is I want to make sure that my brickwork goes all the way around the edge. That way when we're looking at it, it's up on the layout, and if this is exposed, we can look at it and go, wow, those bricks go all the way around. You know, they don't stop. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of this, get the archway done, and we come back. We've got some of this little trinkets we want to do on here as far as with that balsa wood. Okay, so at this point, let me get this out of the way. At this point, we have it all carved and everything else. You could at this point, if you wanted to, let me go ahead and zoom out. If you wanted to, you could stop at this point, cover it with joint compound, and keep on going. But what I like to do is take this and do a little bit more of an ornate kind of look to it. A lot like how we did the first one with those different moldings. So those were created with just using just regular balsa. And it's just a matter of kind of putting them around and figuring out the look that you want. Now, down here at the base, you know, it's just a regular stone that's down here. But check this out. If you lay a piece of balsa on that, it then starts to give it more depth. It starts to give it, you know, a little bit more of a cool look. And if you take that and it wraps around on the side, you know, it just finishes it off. You know, it makes some really strong features to your portal. So up here on top, I'd like to go ahead and cap these off. So making caps up here and then also across up on top. Now, you could do this with the polystyrene, carving it and everything else. It gets to be real intricate work that way, and by using balsa and incorporating that into the polystyrene makes your life a lot easier. Plus, the balsa is easier to work with in some ways than the polystyrene, because the polystyrene, if you start to try to do all this ornate stuff up here with just polystyrene and you mess up, well, it's kind of hard to reverse your situation here. You know, if it's too big of a mess up, you might be starting all over again. But if you're using balsa wood and you're doing those type of little features onto it, if you mess up with this little piece of balsa wood, you just go ahead and cut off another piece and try it again, you know, until you get it right. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just start dolling this thing up with some different cuts of balsa, and when we come back, we'll see what I ended up with. So here it is. And I got all my balsa on there, and you can see how it just changes it. I mean, it just really finishes it off nice. So I mean, I added some down here on the base. I gave it a cap all the way across, and then just kind of gave it some little intricate stuff here and there, but it really dresses it up, you know, and just kind of finishes it the rest of the way. So when I go ahead and put the balsa on, what I'm gluing it on with is just Gorilla Super Glue. And the balsa and the polystyrene, I mean, it sticks together real quick, and it makes a really good bond. So it's a good way of dressing it all up. Now, all I need to do with this now is to go ahead and hit it with the joint compound, the drywall joint compound, like I did with the other one. And then what I'll do is, you know, finish it all off like that. And I'll come back and I will sand, you know, the areas that are going to have finished stone on them, and leave the areas all rough that are going to have kind of that exposed face type of brickwork. And these are all set. They're ready for paint for the next step. So what we need to do after this, well, I'm going to go ahead and get joint compound, get this all set, and then set it off to the side. And then we need to go ahead and jump back up on the layout and finish off the inside of our tunnel. And then once that's done, we can start putting this thing together, and we'll see what we got. Okay, so we're back on the layout, and everything is like in shambles. But what I've done here, let me go ahead and move this, is that I've glued this piece of polystyrene on with hot glue, and I've also glued in the back wall. Okay, so this is the back wall in the tunnel. The portal goes here, and then this is the end, or one of the inside walls. Now, the reason why I'm actually gluing these in ahead of time is for one thing, this tunnel's on a turn. Okay, if it was a straight shot tunnel and I was only dealing with just flat pieces of polystyrene, you know, just going straight, I could actually do this next step off of the construction area. I could do it back at the workbench. But this area right here, I need to get this glued in so I can get everything just kind of set. Now, this side over here, I've kind of made some little notes as far as front, rear, and this is piece 1, and this is piece 2. And I have these cut so that they go right in here like so. Okay. And that falls down. So we get this in there somewhat, right? So, okay, so here's that. Now we got that. And yeah, there we go. I think I got it. All right, so now that I have it like this, what I want to do is glue this panel together. Okay, I want to glue this together. I don't want to mount it to the layout yet. I just want to glue it together so it has the shape that I need. And then this part I can actually finish off down at the table. But I want to go ahead and get this one in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hot glue this together, and then it'll hopefully keep its shape, and I can take it to the next step without having too many issues. The reason why I want to have this together is because I'm going to have brickwork in the inside, and if you're trying to do this on 2 separate pieces, it'll be a little bit difficult. Throw in the fact that we're going up a hill, so this isn't actually
a straight piece. It actually has an incline to it. It makes it extremely difficult if I was going to try to do this in 2 different pieces and then put it on. So I'm going to go ahead and get this glued in, and when we come back, we'll see what we got.
So it worked. So what we got here is this piece fits right in here like so, and then the front portal and the back portal mount right up to it. Now I'm going to take this piece off. Okay, so I'll set this up on top here. Everything's a mess, and we'll get this guy out of the way as well. And we better move this guy out of the way. I got my filler on this, so looks pretty good. But we'll come back to these later. Now we got to address this wall. Now, if you notice down here, I have a little bit of a gap. Now, I'm not worried about that per se for my brickwork, but I am worried about it because what I need to do is put in some type of filler down in this area so that when I come back with the joint compound, I can blend this area into the base and make it look like it's just, you know, the ground just kind of rises up to it. So I just kind of want to berm it up a little bit with the joint compound. So in order for my joint compound to stay there, what I'm going to do is, you know, once you start playing with polystyrene, you're going to end up with all sorts of little bits. I mean, I've got a whole entire bag here of bits, and I've got stuff spread all over the garage right now. So what I'm going to do is just take out some of these scraps. I just had one fly over my head. And I'm going to go ahead and get stuff like this glued in, okay? And I'm going to fill up that gap so that when I come back with my joint compound, it's a lot easier to fill that in. But this is something we want to do now before we start to do our shaping or anything else. So I'm just going to go ahead and take my hot glue, which is some hot glue, and I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit here, just a little bit here, so it stays on. And then we're just going to go ahead and stick that right down inside here, and that's going to fill up our gap for us. So there we go. So now I just need to go ahead and let this dry. It's like I need to get a little piece right in there. When we come back, we can shape this wall and start laying out our grid for our bricks. So at this point, I went ahead and I got this glued in, and I just took some sandpaper and just kind of dressed the edge just so we can bevel it a little bit. So that way when I take the joint compound, I can blend it in, and then those just kind of look like the ground is actually kind of coming up to the wall a little bit in here. So yeah, it'll look better if I'm looking into my tunnel. It won't see a gap. It'll actually be filled in. So at this point, what I want to do is I have this sharp edge that's right here. So I have, what grit is this? This 60 grit sandpaper. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna smooth this out. I'm gonna round this off so it's not, you know, coming to a point, a sharp edge. I wanna just kind of relax this edge a little bit. So let me get my level and stuff out of here. We're not ready for that yet. So I'm just gonna take the 60 grit sandpaper and just sand this down. Get this just to blend better. The cool thing about polystyrene is that it sands so nice that it doesn't take much. And you got your shape. So there we go. That's really all it needs. Now I do have a gap that's up in here. It's okay, I can work with that. So now that we did that, now we need to do, it's kind of dusty, is that I have myself a little torpedo level. And the reason why I'm doing that is that we want our bricks to be level, okay? If you ever look inside a tunnel or even a brick wall for that matter, your bricks a lot of times are not going to follow the ground, okay? They're actually going to be on a level plane, and then they'll stack bricks and put them into the foundation so that you have, you know, a straight wall. So what we want to do here is find our level like so. Okay, so I have it leveled. Oh, come on, level. There we go. Okay, so I have that leveled, and what I'm going to do is take my Sharpie, and I'm going to create a datum point to work off of. Okay, so I have that, and I'm going to bring this over like so. Make sure that she's leveled out right there. I'm going to bring it over to this edge. And then this gets a little bit tricky. We just got to line it up and then find our level. Come on. There we go. So then we'll work it right around the corner here. And I'll bring it back all the way. Okay. So now I have a level plane that's going across. Now what I can do with this is take my measurement and work up and also down based off of this line. And then every, you know, I'll put little marks in. So let's, I'm going to actually put bigger blocks down below here. So I want, let's see here, how big was that block be? That'd be a 3.5 inch block. That's a little big. So I actually want to go about 1.5 inches down here. I want some big foundation blocks. But up above, let's go, let's work off of centimeters. So my side blocks here, I want at 1.5 centimeters. Oh, geez. So at 1.5 centimeters, my foot's giving me trouble, so I need to sit down. So 1.5 centimeters right here. I know my hand's in the way, but I'll just kind of show you here real quick. 1.5. Come on. Right there. 1.5. Right there. Okay. So now I have my marks in. Now just go ahead and take a straight edge, which I can tilt it this way now. And line those guys up. And bring it on through. And there we go. So now I have my first line and my second line put in. And now that gives me, down at the bottom here, gives me 4 centimeters. So I still need to come down a little bit further. So let me go ahead and I'll lay out a grid, and we come back, we'll see what it looks like. So now I have my grid all laid out. And remember, we went 1.5 centimeters as far as the thickness, and on the length I went with 1 inch. So these are 1.5 centimeters by 1 inch, or 1 inch is equivalent to 2.5 centimeters long. So 1.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters. and just went ahead and laid out that whole entire pattern. Now, also, I went ahead and threw some brickwork on the back side of the porthole as well, and I still need to do the this guy, but you kind of get an idea, you know, as far as laying that all out. Now, I'll get this laid out, and then our piece that we glued together, let's see here, we'll set that right up here. And what we want to do is pretty much the same thing that we did with the other side. I'm going to get my level out. I'm going to go ahead and find a level plane and establish that on this side, and then I'll build off of that the same way that I did here. So when we come back, I'll have this all laid out. I'll have my brick pattern laid out on this porthole, and we can start getting the soldering iron out and make some bricks. All we need to do now is just take our soldering iron and come through and just do our bricks. So just like we did the portals, it's the same way we're gonna do these. And I've found through using the soldering iron, it's a lot easier to pull the soldering iron than push it. What I mean by pushing it is pushing it in like this. It's by, if you draw it down, so especially on long stuff like this. So if you just go in, support your hand, and just draw it right on through, it's a lot easier to do it that way than trying to come back. And it just, you know, if you push the soldering iron this way, you'll take a chance of actually jabbing into it. So if we lay it this way and just kind of let that tip just lay on the surface, it's a lot easier to pull along. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this all done, and we come back. I want to do something a little bit different with these bricks down here. So we're going to do a rough surface. So we're going to sand these upper bricks, but these little guys, I want to add something to them. So we come back, we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so now what we need to do is I'm going to go ahead and score the outside of these bricks to make them look like open face bricks, or rough face, whatever they call those bricks. But I have some 36 grit sandpaper, and all I'm gonna do is just rip it across, okay? And that will just go ahead and create that texture and everything else, and then we'll hit it with some joint compound and yeah, dress it all up. But we've done that before. So now what I'm going to do, these lowers down here are going to be like a finished block, you know, big finished block. But I'd like to give them a little bit of character. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to go ahead and just drag it down through. And I'm going to give it just kind of some cracking, okay? So let me go ahead and just hit this a little bit. And what we'll do is just kind of create some scarring on the surface. So let me go ahead and I'll zoom this in a little bit. And let's see here. There. Can I hold it like that? Let's see. Let's see what we can do. Here we go. Okay. So if you see that right down in here, all I'm doing is just taking the tip of my X-Acto blade. I'm just kind of grabbing this, and just kind of bring it down. Just make some lines in this. So a little bit of cracks or whatever. And that would just kind of give those blocks just a little, you know, a little bit more character. Why not, right? So this one over on the corner, we'll go ahead and do the same thing. We'll just kind of give it something like this. I mean, it looks like this tunnel's been here for a long time, so we might as well give it a little bit of wear and tear on it too, right? So there. So I'm going to go through and maybe hit a few more areas. but once we come in with the joint compound, these areas will go ahead and we'll see those, right? And then we can go ahead and clean them up a little bit with the X-Acto blade. And then when we paint it and do our black wash, the black wash will get inside those and make them kind of pop. So yeah, it'd be kind of cool. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and finish all this and do a little bit more scoring on some of these lower blocks, and we'll take it to the next step. So let's go ahead and put some joint compound on this. Now, I've already done this side over here, and we just need to go ahead and do this. Now, the joint compound, the drywall joint compound, is just like the same way that I apply it with any of the other stuff that we do. One thing about bricks, that when you do put it in, you don't want to put in a whole bunch at one time. You want to go ahead and just take a little bit, put it on there, and then work that in, because it is a filling compound, and if you put too much on there, it's going to give you a little bit of issue as far as trying to work it around so that you don't cover up all your brickwork. So what I like to do is just a little bit, kind of move it around here a little bit like so, and just start coming in at different angles and working those bricks. So just kind of do it like you'll go up and down and side to side and kind of work on those seams that are in there, and you can start bringing those out. Kind of filling in just a little bit, but just kind of working it through. Now I'm using a bigger stiff bristle brush, but I also have a small bristle. So, and this might work better for you as well. It's a little bit easier to control. You're not gonna be able to load as much material on this as you are on that. So, and we'll just kind of work it here just a little bit. Let's see what we got. Okay, that one, there's a little seam. And there we go. So it just starts to go on through and pop. Now this crack that's right in here, watch this. So we can grab some of that, put it in, and we can make this work for us. So just kind of work it in, use the small brush. And one thing about joint compound also, this drywall, is as it dries, it'll shrink a little bit, meaning it'll pull into the surface a little bit. So even if you're looking at it going, man, I don't know if I worked it out enough or whatnot, it will pull back into itself again. So it'll give that little bit of definition that you might be lacking. It'll help you a little, in that aspect. But there we go. And there's that seam through there, which doesn't look too bad. Now, this area down here that I went ahead and put that filler piece in, I'm just gonna take this small one. Let me get this big one out of my hand. And we're just gonna put this down through here and fill this corner. I'm kind of floating the brush to kind of fill those gaps. And just kind of fill that all in. Now we've got these lower areas that were the finished stone, and we put those cracks in there. So with the smaller brush, you can go ahead and just kind of work those cracks and get it like so. Just like that. And then if it's not smooth enough after it dries, you can come down with maybe some 220 sandpaper and just kiss the surface of it to smooth it out a little bit more. But there we go. We got joint compound going on our wall. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this off, and then we gotta wait for it to dry a little bit. And then we come back, we'll start painting our portals, the entries on the outside, and then we'll go ahead and assemble this and start going from there. Okay, so we're back here at the bench and you're looking down here and you're saying, wait a minute, you already started painting. Well, yeah, because I wanted to show you guys something. Now, I have the 2 portals in the one side sitting here, and got all our joint compound on there and got our areas sanded that are smooth, and we're ready for paint. Now, I'm just going to do these, obviously, a gray, but I have a different way of doing this. Now, I have done rock painting and brick painting before in different videos. This is a little bit different technique that I haven't showed you guys yet, but this is the perfect way to do it. So a lot of times on projects, you're gonna have projects that are they're gonna be large, okay? They're like, this has a lot of bits and pieces to it and everything else, and there's a good chance I'm not gonna do this in one sitting, okay? So if you're mixing per se a gray for stonework, and you're mixing a black and a white together, and those are the 2 colors we're gonna use. I'm using an antique white, and I'm using just a regular straight black. And they're both acrylics. Now, what I mean is, so you have a large area to paint, a lot of different bits and pieces, and you're not gonna be able to do it in one sitting, okay? There's a little bit of an issue if you're trying to just mix a certain color as far as a gray, and you have all this going on, because you're gonna have to mix a whole bunch of color at one time and then save that color, or know exactly your mixing proportions and everything else, so that when you come back to it and you start painting, that your paint's gonna match, right? Well, this is something that solves that issue. And what I do is I take the black and I take the white and I put it down on a mixing board, okay? Now, if you notice here, I've got a few different grays going on here. I have a real dark, I have some lighter gray here, I have one that's kind of in between, okay? And what that does for us is that when we go ahead and paint this, we can have almost a pre-wash going on, if you want to put it that way. We're going to put multiple different colors of gray on our stonework, and for one thing, it helps, say you're only able to do so much and the wife calls you and you got a honeydew list, and there goes your day, right? You thought you were going to do a bunch of modeling, but she has other plans for you. Well, you can set this down and come back to it and have the same type of mixture going on, and you're going to be okay. Your grays and everything, you're going to be able to make it work. The other thing is yeah, you can step away, you can come back. Plus, the other thing on top of it is, if we're putting down different colors of gray onto it, it's going to start kind of its own little aging effect just with our base color, okay? So instead of just putting one color down, we're putting multiple different colors down. And if you look down in this area, it's actually giving the stones a more of a natural look. It's actually, there's some light areas, there's some dark areas, and it just kind of blends through, and it makes it look, it just adds to the effect. So what I'm doing is just mixing these 2 colors out. Like I said, I've got a few different colors going on here, and I'm just using a small stiff bristle brush to start out with. And I just come in, I mean, here's some dark stuff right here. I'm just gonna go ahead and work this in. And you're like, whoa, that's a lot darker than the other stuff, right? Well, watch this. We can start blending this through. And you know, say you stepped away from this for a while, right? Well, watch. So now we're coming into a light gray. Over the top of that gray, we're blending the 2 together. And for one thing now, we'll come back over some of our other areas. And you notice I'm just moving fast, right? We're just kind of blending the color out. We got some cracks down in here. Let me hit some more of this light gray over here. Actually, let me put this down here so you guys can see it. So now I'm hitting some light gray. And you see that light gray over that dark gray? And just bear with me here. it's a process. So but just to kind of give you an idea, I wanted to hit with that dark color because you could see how much of a difference that was. I'll come back over here. I'll hit some of this stuff. Cover up some of that. Do a little blotting in here. Now the light spots, those are okay because we still got to come back over this with a black wash at the end of it. So some of these white spots, they'll be okay. They'll actually get covered up with the wash and it'll give a little bit more depth in realism to it. But there. So you saw that I started out with that real dark and I was able to blend that real dark back into our other stuff and it looks pretty good. So that's kind of the technique that I'll be using throughout this whole entire project as far as with the tunnel project on the inside and then with our portals. Now, the other thing you probably noticed is when we were up there on the layout, I went ahead and put these cracks in on the lower, right? Well, I also went ahead and added those to this portal. So we have some cracking here on the porthole. And I did it the same way that I did on that wall. So just took my X-Acto, went in, kind of get some lines, a little bit more character to it, give a little bit more aging. And yeah, it looks pretty cool. So what I'm gonna do is I've got a whole lot of painting in front of me and I've got to get these all painted. I got to get the other wall painted. Plus, I got to get the back sides of these painted. So yeah, I got a lot of painting to do. So I will see you guys after I have this all done, and then we got to assemble what we have.
So we're back at the table. We've got all our gray on, and if you look at this, you can see how it kind of has that fading and everything else. That effect really works cool. And I was able to stop midway and come back the next morning and finish my painting, and everything blends together real nice. So here is the first one that we did, and here is the second porthole. Now this one, I've already done all of the black wash and the white highlights as far as the dry brushing. So what we're going to do is you can see how that goes. You can see how these cracks kind of pop now that the black and stuff's in them. So that looks really cool. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start with this guy right here. And the first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and do a black wash. And this is just an acrylic wash with straight black acrylic paint. And then that's watered down. And I usually mix this, I would say anywhere from 25 to 1 to 50 to 1, depending on the effect and how dark you want to have it. So I'm just going to use a small detail brush to do this. And the reason is because I don't want a bunch of overpowering wash effect. I just want to hit it just lightly. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to kind of give a little bit of staining in certain areas here. And then I'm going to take a damp, or not a damp, just a clean rag and just blot this just a little bit because I don't want a whole bunch of effect to it. I just want it real light. So I don't know if you can see that, but it just has just a glistening of a little bit of black in there. And if you compare the two, you can kind of see the difference. So with this, just kind of go into your corners, work it down, and just kind of work it around. And it's amazing how this will just kind of start to bring everything together, kind of work it down into your areas there. And then I'm going to come back with my clean cloth, and I'm just going to go ahead and wipe that out just a little bit, and then that gives it that definition down in those corners. So keep on doing this. Now let's get down into some of this brickwork real quick. So we got the area down here where it's in between. I'm just going to go ahead and let that do its thing, and then I'm just going to hit kind of on the sides and just let that kind of creep down in here. Okay, so I got that. Come black, I'm going to blot it just a little bit, and there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and keep on doing my black wash around on this one, and when we come back, we'll go ahead and get our white dry brushing on this. And the same, well, before we go, we have this as well, right? So with this being in the inside, it's not as critical, but kind of do it the same way. Let's do our cracks down here at the bottom. So let's go ahead and let's put some of this down in here. Let's just play with this. I'll just do a few, bring it down. Same thing there, let it just kind of sit down inside of it. Bring it down through here. And then I'll come back with my rag. Just kind of wipe it on there a little bit, and you can see it's just kind of giving that a little bit of a staining effect. So I want a little bit more effect in here. And I want to darken this one up more. I'm going to dap that down in there so those are a little bit more pronounced. Okay. So this is a little bit more of a precision type of wash effect. If you've seen my other videos, I've just kind of gone in and let it just kind of do its thing. With this, I'm just kind of taking my time a little bit more and just kind of working those areas where I really want to have that black wash set in there and pop. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one, and we'll take care of this guy right here. When we come back, we'll see what it looks like, and then we'll hit it with a white dry brush. Okay, so we're back, and I finished up the black wash on the Porthole, and you can see it just kind of gives it a really cool kind of staining effect when you do it that way. You know, you can control it a little bit better and just kind of give it more of an aged kind of look to it. You can smear the wash, create certain grains and stuff in it, and it works out pretty cool. Now, let me go and set this off to the side. Now we're down to the brick wall, and I showed you, you know, the one technique down here at the bottom, but here is just the old standard type of wash. Okay, so I still have this wash about 50-to-1, and I'm just taking a bigger brush and just going right over the top. Okay, and what this is going to do is going to soak into the little nooks and crannies and everything else and get them to pop for us. So this is going to look a little bit dark when we put it on, but as it dries, it will lighten up. But I'm not actually going to let it all sit here just like that. I'm going to take my paper towel, and I'm just going to blot the surface. And I don't want to get it out from the cracks. I just want to blot the surface a little bit, because I'm not looking for that really strong wash type of thing. I just wanted a little bit in there just to kind of give it a little bit of definition, but I want to kind of give it, you know, a little bit of a washed, you know, kind of a washed out look as well. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and when we come back, we'll go ahead and do our white dry brushing. Now we're back to our Porthole here, and I want to show you guys the dry brushing. Now, I went ahead and did a white dry brush on this side. You can see how it starts to really bring out those textures and everything else and really makes them pop. And if you go to the other side,
you know, it doesn't pop as much. But as soon as you hit it with the with that white dry brush, it starts to really come alive. I mean, up on top, it looks pretty cool. Just gives it kind of that extra little oomph. So what I'm using is just a antique white, and I have myself a board and a stiff bristle brush, and I'm just going to kind of work this a little bit just so you have a little bit of paint on there. And then with a kind of a light touch, I'm just kind of wisp it on. And what this kind of gives you the effect as far as like sunlight hitting it and kind of giving those highlights. So just kind of give it a light little coating, and it's amazing how this stuff just starts to make everything come alive. So probably hear it in the background. We got some thunder and lightning going on tonight. Typical Texas thunderstorm in the background. So no, nothing fell down. It's just thunder lightning in the background. So there's our dry brushing, and it, you know, turns out really cool. You notice I'm just kind of going in, I'm working it, and the more you hit it, the more it really starts to pop. Let's get the underside of that. It starts bringing out all that texture and all that stonework. There we go. So I'm going to keep on working on this, get this one the rest of the way done, and then we'll work on that brick wall. Okay, now we're on to the block wall. Insane concept as far as with the dry brush effect. I have my antique white on my board. I'm just going to go ahead and work this just a little bit, like so. And then I have that, and I'm just going to come in and start hitting it. And it just starts to make everything pop. Now you realize I'm going two different directions. And the reason for that is we got blocks. So I'm hitting up and down stroke is going to hit the upper and the lower part of the block. Side to side will hit the front and the rear. So we come in like this, we go up and down, and then we go side to side. And that'll just help define those blocks more. Now down here at the lower, on our finished area, you can see that side over there. It really makes those cracks and everything pop out. So I'm just gonna lightly wisp it onto here, and just keep on working it until you get the effect that you want. It's kind of cool. It gives, you know, you can start seeing some of that texture and stuff pop out. If we look at this block, okay. So let me get some paint loaded up here. So we have this one right here. We just start putting it on like that. You can just start seeing it start to come alive. It's really cool. And just hit it like so. And there we go. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this guy out, and still need to finish the wall up on the layout. I'll go ahead and do that. And then it's time to go ahead and start mounting these guys up and actually make a tunnel.
Okay, so we're back here at the layout, and I have our tunnel, all the bits and pieces, all mounted up here. I've got that upside down. So let me go ahead and put this on there. And come on, tunnel. And there we go. We got ourselves somewhat of a tunnel. So what I'm going to do at this point in time is, well, I'll tell you what. Let me go ahead and take this down. Let me take this one down. I have this outer wall. Now I've made a line here so I can go ahead and place this down, and it's where it needs to be. But I'm going to go ahead and hot glue, using my hot glue gun, I'm going to hot glue my outer pieces, my two portals, into place here, okay? Now I'm just going to glue on this side and on the bottom and get that mounted where I want it to go. I'm going to let this side float so I have adjustment when I put in my back wall. I can line that up as well. The reason why I'm doing this at this point is that if you look down at the bottom, my base and everything, as far as the groundwork, hasn't been completed yet. Well, when this wall comes into place here, there's a little bit of a gap that I want to go ahead and correct. And the only way I'm going to be able to do that is with everything being mounted in. And then I can come in with some joint compound and fill that in and then go ahead and do my groundwork. Plus, where this mounts on to the side here, there's just a teeny tiny little bit of space. So what I want to do is, I want to see how close I can get that to fit. And if it is off just a smudge, I can go ahead and take some joint compound and fill that, and then just go ahead and touch up that area. And by using that gray, the process that I showed you with the different colors, it's real easy just to go in there and doll it up real quick. So that is my line of attack. Now, if you were making one of these on a flat plane or just basically on a hill, you could go ahead and build this whole entire thing off the layout, bring it in, and boom, you'd have a tunnel. But being that this is on a turn, it's got different curves going on, we've got a hill, this is just too much. I have to build it in different sections, which creates a lot more work. But it's going to look pretty cool when it's all done. So when we come back, we'll have this all glued into place, and with a little bit of luck, it'll go smooth. So I have this all mounted in. It's all hot glued in. And now what we need to do is there's that seam right there on that corner. And I want to go ahead and fill that. So what I'm going to use is just some joint compound in a small paintbrush, a real tiny little guy. Here, I'll show you. So just one of these, just the fine tip paintbrush. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and just put a little bit on there. And the reason why I like using a small paintbrush like this is that I can get a little bit more control, okay? And the bristles on the top side, I can tease this and get it to lay the way that I want and fill that gap. So it's kind of tedious, but at least I only have one seam to do. All the other seams turned out really nice. This is the only one that has a little bit of a gap to it. And since when you're looking in at, say, this angle, you're going to be able to see this area down here, I really want to make sure that it looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this seam, and then I'm also going to fill the seam that's underneath on our back wall here. And I'm going to do it pretty much the same way I did that one on the other side. So I'll get those two done, and then we can do our ground down in there. We got some guardrail we need to throw down in there too. And yeah, we're getting close. Then it's just coming down to putting a lid on this thing, and we have ourselves a tunnel. All the other stuff we're going to have to do in another video because this video is long. I'll see you guys in a little bit.
Okay, so if we go over to that corner right there, you can see I got that all blended in. And then I just use that same technique as far as blending the gray and then coming in with a black wash and then hitting it with the dry brush with the white, and it blends in really cool. So that worked great. Now you can see I got my ground cover in, and what I used that was just an acrylic, and I used two different browns to go ahead and make that. It was a pine cone, and like this one right here is called bittersweet, and it's like a burnt umber, and I just mixed the two together, and it kind of gave me a good kind of muddy ground cover color. So I went ahead and put that in. So that's, just be careful, make sure you don't get it on your bricks or anything else. And I got that in there. And one other thing before we end this little segment is, let me go ahead and I'll set this right here. And on the surface, say that you have it, you did your white highlights and they're really brilliant, right? You want to go ahead and dirty it up just a little bit. Well, I took some of that burnt umber, that bittersweet, and what I'm going to do is just a light dry brush. So same way that we do the white, I'm going to go ahead and do this brown. So I'm just going to go ahead and work it into the stiff bristle brush. And then it's kind of weird coming in at this angle, but and just kind of hit this just lightly. And what this will do is just kind of dirty the bricks just a little bit and maybe tone down that white some. You know, kind of gives it a little bit more of a realistic look to it. You know, it was looking pretty shiny and need to tone it down just a little bit. So I'm just going to hit it with a little bit of brown on a dry brush, and that'll tone it down a little bit for me, and it'll give a little bit of an aged look at the same time. So just kind of hit some of those areas, and it kind of gives a little bit more staining to it and just kind of tones down some of that white. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit that, and we come back. Now that we got our ground cover in, I want to go ahead and just give a little bit more pizzazz to it. You see this right here, and that's what we have coming up. So come back, we'll go ahead and do whatever I got going on right there. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, since we have our ground cover all put in, okay, and it's all nice and dry, what I've done is I've come over the top with a little bit of sand. Now I know sand in slot cars don't really match. I mean, you get sand inside the moving parts of a slot car and it can be, you know, it can be devastating. Now, this area through here is going to have a guardrail and everything else. So the cars themselves will never come in contact with the actual sand. So I've done this on a couple other parts of my layout, and it works really cool. And once the sand is dry, you come back over with a vacuum, get out all the extra, and it's a really cool effect. And it's dried on there, it doesn't come off. So how I do this is I take a little bit of Mod Podge, and this is the matte finish Mod Podge, and just a brush here. And what we're gonna do is I'm just going to go ahead and dap this in. So let's see here. Let me get it down in here around some of the areas. And the cool thing about the matte finish Mod Podge is that it'll dry to a matte finish and it'll be clear. So the white that you see right here will actually dissipate and go away when it's cured out. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this down like so. And I'm actually going to put some right here on the edges to kind of give it a little bit more, you know, a little bit of debris right on the sides right there. So now that I got that down, let's see here. Let me get my beach sand. And here's some beach sand that I collected from actually, it was a trip to the East Coast. This is Florida sand. So what I am going to do is just take this, and you notice also I have the track covered up. So trying to protect it as much as I can, you know, trying to keep it to a minimum. And I'm just gonna take this sand, sprinkle it on there like so. And then I'm going to take another little brush, little kind of fantail style, and I'm just going to sweep this sand into the glue, into the Mod Podge. And since we got some up there, I'm going to kick some up there. And this will soak into the PVA, the Mod Podge, and will actually dry in the glue itself. So I'm going to do that. You can tease it a little bit to give it a little bit of texture if you want on the ground, so you can kind of hit it like so. So it's not all nice and smooth, has a little bit of chunkiness to it. And I'll hit it like that. And then what we need to do is go ahead and let this all dry and then come back with a vacuum, vacuum up our excess, and we have kind of a cool ground effect. You know, it has a little bit of that dirt kind of grimy look to it. And yeah, that's just that little extra little oomph. So when we come back, I'll have that all vacuumed out and we'll put in our guardrail. And then what we got to do is put a roof on this thing. And I have a couple different ways of doing that, and we'll share that when we come back.
Okay, so our PVA or our Mod Podge is all dry, and we've got our sand all set in there. And I went ahead and vacuumed all out and got all the excess out, all the loose. And this stuff, I mean, it's in there good. It's not coming out. Once it gets set with that PVA, it just seals it right in. So it's kind of a cool way of doing ground cover. I mean, it's easy, yet it gives you a really cool effect. So just one of those little things you might want to look into. Now, also you've noticed I've added some guardrail in there, and I have a video on that. I'll go ahead and put that up. And yeah, I mean, add some guardrail, add a little bit of sand in there, maybe some grass tufts around some of the edges down in here, and it really starts to bring it alive. Really sets it off. So now that we have the inside of this all set, let me go ahead and set the camera down right over here. And now what we can start to worry about is the roof. Yeah, I mean, it's not a tunnel until we have a roof on it, right? So there's a couple different ways you could do a roof. You could do just a flat piece of polystyrene. So you could cut off a piece, maybe go ahead and do some brickwork on the bottom side of this and just slap it up here on top. Or you could carve it up like rocks and set it up on top. And that's with polystyrene. Or you could get yourself a piece of cardboard, you know, do the same. Go ahead and set it up on top. Maybe just paint it black or paint it gray. Just something that your eyes aren't going to catch to it. So there's that idea. Or you can take this same piece of cardboard, so this piece, and we can change it into something like this. And what this is a coved piece that I've created. And what this will do is set right on here, give a domed look to the inside, and kind of follow that whole entire motif that we have going on and complete it. Now, I went ahead and I built this one ahead of time, but no worries. I'm going to run you through real quick on how I built my roof panel. So when we come back, we'll get back down to the bench. You know, I'll go over this real quick with you, and you too will be able to figure out on how to do this. Okay, we're back over here on the workbench, and I have my roof panel that I created for the tunnel. Now, this isn't flat, it's contoured, has a little bit of an arch to it, so that when you're looking inside of it, you know, when you look up, the roof isn't flat, it's got an arch, so it kind of looks like, you know, it represents what a tunnel should look like in the inside. So, and being that I'm going to be, you know, most likely taking pictures and stuff like that in the inside, I really wanted the top of the tunnel to, you know, mimic a real tunnel as best as possible. So I came up with this little handy dandy idea. Now, so how did I come up with this? Well, I took a piece of cardboard. Actually, there's two different pieces here. What you want to do is you want to find your length, obviously. And since this is on a turn, I went ahead and put the one in to where it was the apex of the corner to the outside, scribed a line, and then cut that off. Okay. Then I took this second piece of cardboard, laid that in on the opposite side, brought it up, laid it over the top of this, and then marked it on both sides, scribed my line, cut that off, and then joined the two together with some tape just to hold them into place. Okay, so I have that. Now, the inside of this is created with drywall joint compound. So I smeared the whole entire thing with joint compound, textured it, and then went ahead and drug up the edge of the brush in here to create my brickwork. And it's pretty cool. I mean, if you get up there, it's got texture to it. You know, it's going to be a cool effect when it's all said and done. So I need to show you guys exactly how I did this. So we come back, I'll go ahead and I will grab this piece and I'll run you through on how to create a contoured tunnel roof. So after you have your piece of cardboard and you've trimmed it to the length that you need and you've compensated for, you know, the amount of width that you need, next thing you need to do is go ahead and take your cardboard and roll it up, okay? And roll it up in the direction that you need to have it. So the lengthwise of your tunnel. So you want to roll it up in a tube like so. Kind of work that around, give it a few squeezes, and make sure that, you know, it's going to have an arch to it when you open it up. So when we unravel this, what do we got here? Well, we've got ourselves a nice arch. And you can roll it a few times just to kind of get rid of maybe some of the little bit of ridging and stuff. The more you roll it and the more you work it like this, the smoother you're going to make this contour. So once you have it like that, I recommend going back up to your layout, to your tunnel, test fit this again. So just make sure that you dotted your I's and you crossed your T's and that your piece here is going to work. You know, you're going to be able to set it down on the side. It's going to butt up against it. So when you're looking inside of it, you don't see any, you know, big gaps or anything. If you look on the side of this one, you see these swoops that are in it. You wouldn't want these. You would want it nice and flat so that when it lays down on that edge, you're not going to have any gap. See how the gap is showing through there? No gap. Don't want that gap. So we want to make sure it's nice and smooth. All right, so now that we have this, and it's all contoured, the next thing we need to do is get some joint compound. So I'm gonna go get some joint compound. We come back, we'll smear this real quick, and I'll show you what we do from there. All right, so we're back, and we have our joint compound. Now, this side, I went ahead and laid the joint compound directly on the cardboard with no barrier. I don't recommend doing it this way because joint compound has moisture to it, okay? And if you're applying it over the top of cardboard, which is a paper product, the moisture is going to absorb into the paper product, the cardboard, and it's going to distort. It's going to take a chance at distorting, especially if you loaded it up a little bit too thick. It's going to distort. So what I recommend is taking either a black primer or a gray or maybe black paint, you know, as far as rattle can. I actually used on this, I used just some Rust-Oleum, you know, bomb can, okay? So just some type of coating that you can put on the inside of this over the top of the cardboard before you put your joint compound down, okay? So go ahead and lay your joint compound out. So I have a brush here with my drywall joint compound, and I'm just going to put on a thin, smooth, or somewhat smooth. I guess you can't put it on too smooth with a brush, but a coating of joint compound onto it. Okay. Now, if you see the two, this is the stuff I just put on, which is all brushed on, and then this area has a texture to it, right? So what you want to do to get it to look like that, so your bricks or whatever you're going to do with it has a little bit of texture, is take the end of your brush and just go ahead and tap it. And what this will do is create that texture so you get rid of those brush marks. So we go ahead and we do this, get this all textured up. Now, another thing about this is that if you make your joint compound too thick, okay, and I've kind of ran into this a couple different times, so I want to pass this info on to you. If you put it on too thick, sometimes it has problems adhering itself to to the cardboard. It actually, I think it what happens is it gets moisture built up in there and it just doesn't bond to it as well. So if you make kind of a thinner coat, it has a lot better adhesion of locking itself to the cardboard on the underside. So go ahead and just kind of keep that in mind. Now, I went ahead and put the thin coat on here, textured it up, and now what we want to do is, let me grab this and we'll clear off the compound onto it. I just have a paintbrush here, okay? And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and lay out my lines. So I'm just going to scribe this across, and we'll just do this real quick, okay? And this part can be a little bit tricky, as far as dragging a somewhat, straight line. The one thing good about this, it's on the ceiling. You're not really going to be able to see it all that much. So if your lines aren't exactly perfectly straight, it's okay, because it'll blend in, right? So I went ahead and I took my paintbrush, I scribed those lines, and now what we want to do is just go ahead and create our brickwork. So I'm just going to go ahead and make my marks here and create the type of bricks that I want. So I went through there, and I just come into the middle, and your brush might get loaded up with compound. And what you need to do is just clean off the edge of it, come back in, and just keep on doing your brickwork. Now, when you put this down, the thinner you put the joint compound down, the faster it's going to dry. So keep that in mind. If you're doing a large area, it might be worth just kind of doing little sections at a time. Paint the whole entire inside with the black, spray the whole entire thing, and then come back and do maybe a quarter sections at a time. And that might be easier too when you're actually scribing your line across. You don't have to do the whole entire panel. You can do a little section and then do that, and then come back, grab it, do your next section, do that one, and so on. So just kind of one of those things to keep in mind when you're doing it. So let me go ahead and I'll get these bricks just kind of laid out so you kind of get an idea. And there we go. We got some bricks, right? So now we need to do is go ahead and let this dry. Okay. Another thing comes down to preference. If you have a hair dryer or a heat gun, so if you have yourself a heat gun, you can go ahead and force dry this and turn that on and force dry it so that the joint compound you'll cut down on the amount of seepage and moisture that will go into the actual cardboard. So that'll help as far as keeping your contour. So what I need to do at this point, obviously, would be to finish this whole entire thing and then dry it all off. And once it's dry, we come back, we'll take it to the next step. Once you have it like this and it's all dry, what I do next is I take a little bit of spray adhesive, spray glue, and I go ahead and mist the whole entire thing and put this over the top. And it's going to do a couple different things. It's going to come out kind of in a texture. So it's going to kind of add to the texture that you already put down onto the panel. Second thing it's going to do, it's going to create a glue bond across the top just to help everything lock into place, okay? So that when you go to paint this, you don't knock off any of the tiles or anything else. This is just a little bit of added assurance that it's going to lock it into place. Plus, the other thing that it does is not only locking your surface into place, but your contour, once the glue dries, will help your cardboard keep that contour that you want. Okay, it'll alleviate the contour to relax out of your cardboard. So it'll help as far as holding that shape. So Once that is complete, okay, so you've done all those steps, then you're going to have a piece that looks like this, okay? So it'll have your contour in it, it'll be all locked into place, and it's then ready to paint, okay? So at this point, you could go ahead and paint it the same way that we painted everything else. Go ahead and do your gray, do your black wash, and then go ahead over the top and do the white dry brush over the top. And voila, it's going to match what you got there. So you can go ahead and do it that way. You could also come in, if you didn't want to per se brush this, you could spray it gray or something along those lines if you wanted to. I mean, there's tons of different ways to paint scenery, but if you went ahead and just used the same technique that we used, it'll work, okay? Just one thing to keep in mind is always that we are dealing with cardboard, okay? We're dealing with a moisture sensitive substrate. So when you're doing your painting or whatever, try to minimize the amount of moisture that is in your paint. So you don't really want to water it down, load it all up, because it might seep in. Even though we've hit it with spray glue, just kind of keep that in the back of your head, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get this all painted and get it all looking pretty, and then it'll be time to mount it on our tunnel. And I have this all painted. It has all the highlights done. If I get right up on it, you can see how it has that texture, and you can see that brickwork in there as well. So definitely a plus, and it has its contour. So there's that portion. Now, before we go ahead and put the lid on this whole entire ordeal, if you're going to add any lights or any type of stuff, say in the rafters, as far as making any support beams or anything like that, this is the time you want to do it, because it's perfect. The lid's going to be off the top. You can do whatever type of dolling up that you want to do inside of the tunnel, because as soon as the ceiling goes on it and it's all sealed in, you're only going to be able to access it from the side. So if there's anything else that you want to do, maybe there's a billboard in the inside or any of that type of stuff, this is the time you want to go and handle that. Now, this is just a beam that I put together, and I have 3 of them that I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to put my lights on the inside. And this is just built out of balsa, as far as I forget what that is. That's 1/2-inch balsa square dowel, okay? And then I have the 1/2-inch by, I believe it's 1/16. That's this material right here. Balsa. And I went ahead and made some plates, okay? And then painted those silver. The 1/2-inch balsa here is stained with walnut stain, and then I hit just a little bit of ebony stain and then rubbed the whole entire thing, gave it a rub, and that gives us that kind of tarnished, dirty kind of look to it, kind of cool. It looks like it's been up there for a while and has some creosote and stuff all built up onto it. So that's how I did that. The little button work right here, our bolts that go through, were done with these wire brads, and these are 5/8 by 18 gauge. And yeah, so I just went ahead and pushed those in, and since it's balsa, you can just push it right through. Use a needle nose plier to help you, because it's still gonna, it's gonna rip up your fingers if you just try to push it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it looks pretty neat. And then just hit it with some silver paint, did that kind of wash effect with the oils on the balsa. And then the light fixture itself, if you see my other videos and stuff like that, I've used this quite a bit, and that's the upholstery washer, and that's a 3mm bulb.
that's in the inside there, but it gives it a really cool look. So, and then went ahead and string that through. You run a drill up through the middle, and then we have our pigtail hanging off to the side here that we can put through the ceiling and hook up some lights to the inside of our tunnel. So if you are going to run lights, again, this is the time you want to do it. So if you want to build something like this, if you want to build whatever, I mean, there's tons of different stuff out there. Just let your imagination go wild. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one in there. And then what we need to do is get our roof on this tunnel, and I think it'd be a wrap.
Okay. So I was going through my editing process and I got to this area where I just explained how I built this beam. Okay. And I was looking at it and I'm like, this thing is so cool that I really need to show you guys exactly how I did this. Okay. There's kind of a bit that you put into making this. So I'm inserting this clip into the video to make this beam. So here we go. All right. So I'm going to show you guys all the bits and pieces and the material needed to create this. So let me go ahead and set that off. Excuse the mess. This is the aftermath of almost a month of filming to make this video. And I haven't had a chance to clean up everything yet. So just kind of bear with me here. So here we go. What we need is we need some 1/2 inch balsa dowel. Okay, so that's what this is. Go ahead and set this off to the side over here. And then we also need some 1/2 inch by 1/16 balsa plank. So those are the two materials used to make the actual beam itself. Now, the light fixture is this little guy right here. And this is a 3mm LED light diode. And I also have a countersunk upholstery washer. Okay, so here is this little guy. All right, now I've built these on quite a few other little videos, and I'm going to go ahead and put a video up right over there. Okay, and that video will show you how exactly you go about making this. I've done it a few times, so I'm just going to put the video up, and yeah, and you guys can watch that, and it'll show you how to make this light. So there is that. Now, the tools needed for that are a light hammer and your two different punches. So I have a flat-ended punch, and I also have one of these countersunk punches, dome style. So there's those two pits to go ahead and build that light. Now, back to the beam. We also need these 3/8 by 18 gauge wire brads, or little finish nails. Okay, real tiny little guys. I'll show you one in my hand. So real tiny. Okay, tiny little guys. All right, so there's that. We also need ruler, pair of needle nose pliers, some sandpaper, pencil, a little punch like this little guy. And what this guy's needed for is with the balsa plank, this stuff. Okay, if you try to force a nail through it and don't pilot a hole ahead of times, it'll want to split. Okay, so this will help as far as not splitting on you. So there's that. Need a couple different brushes. I have a little hand drill here with a 1/8 drill bit. Have a razor knife, little hacksaw. I have my Gorilla Glue, and I have some accelerant. You don't need this, but this stuff is great. You go ahead and squirt it, and boom, it really kicks off that super glue for you. So if you have some of this sitting on the shelf, go grab it. You can use it on this project. We also need some silver acrylic. Need some black acrylic. And then we need some medium walnut oil. This is what I'm using. And some black ebony. All right. And plus, with that, you need just an old cloth. All right. So an old cloth for our staining process. And let me check. I believe I've got everything. Yep, that's cool. So let's go ahead and let's build our cool little beam. Okay, so at this point, I went ahead and cut out all my little bits, all right? So as far as your beam length, it's all going to depend on the width of what your walls are, okay? This one is just one that I had laying there, so I'm just going to go ahead and use this. This is actually at 16.5 centimeters wide. So again, it all depends on how wide of the opening is that you need to span. So there's my lower beam that I cut out with my hacksaw. And then here's my upper beam or my post. Now, this again is cut from the 1/2 inch dowel. And depending on what your ceiling height is going to depict on what size you need here. Because what we want this to do is to mount on our beam like this and then rest against the ceiling, the roof structure of our tunnel. So mine was roughly, I believe, let's see here, right around 3.5 centimeters is what my height was in the apex of the curvature of the roof. So again, depending on what your height is, will depict on how high you need this little guy, how long. Now the gussets that go down in here are, these guys are right around 3.5 centimeters each. I have 2 of those, okay? And then these are the upper portions, and these are at 1.5 centimeters, okay? So, and I have 2 of those. So now that I have everything out and cut, now I'm just going to come through with my sandpaper, and I'm just going to go ahead and dress these edges up, okay? It's just kind of take care of any of the frays or anything else, just so that they mount up nice. All right, so we come back, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get these guys all glued together. Okay, so now we're back. I have everything all cut, everything's all dressed up on the sides, and now what I did is found the center point of my beam. Okay, so went ahead and found the center point, marked it with my pencil. Now what I need to do is take my upper post and super glue it right here. Okay, so once you have that glued together, then what we need to do is take these guys, find the center point with these. Okay, so what we need to do is find the center point, mark that, so then you can line this up to the middle, and this guy goes right here up on top. Okay, so go ahead and glue those all into place as well on both sides. And when we come back, I'll have this all glued up, and we'll be ready to insert our nails into this to create our bolts. Okay, so now I have it all glued together, front and back sides. The next thing we need to do is create our pilot holes for our brads to go through, the little finish nails. So on the upper right here, I'm going to create 5. So I'm just going to kind of come down a little bit off to the side and create a grid of 5. Okay. And then down here, I'm going to create a grid of 8. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this little punch, this real sharp little punch. And I'm going to create just some holes to start my brads in there. The reason why I'm doing this is if you try to just push them through, what'll happen, especially on this upper piece. Okay, I found this out the hard way, so I'm sharing this with you guys. If you don't create a pilot hole and you go through, the middle one is no problem. It's the sides over here. What happens is it'll split your your balsa with the grain of the wood, and you'll have a crack that goes up on both sides, which, I mean, it can kind of work. You can squeeze it together, put a little bit of super glue on it, and then dress it up so, you know, it just shows more wear. But if you want to avoid that little bit of a headache, go ahead and take a sharp little punch and just create your holes ahead of time. Okay, so we're just going to do this, and I'll just go through and I'll show you real quick what I mean. So just like that, create your holes, same thing down here, and then we'll go ahead and put in those little finish nails. All right, so now that we have everything glued together, next thing you need to do is go ahead and take your drill bit, this little guy right here, and what we're going to do is we're going to shoot up from the middle underneath here at an angle, and we're going to get a hole that's going to line right over like so. Okay, and why we're doing this is so we can put our light fixture right here on the bottom, and then our hole will come up, and then we can take our wires and trace our wires right up the side here, up through the ceiling of the tunnel, and yeah, voila, you got wiring. So it's real easy. I'm just going to go ahead and line this guy up in the middle, give it a couple turns. Now turn it the direction that I want and just drill it on through. And just like so. And then there we go. We have our, and it's split a little bit here on top, but that's okay because you can't see that anywho. So we'll just come down the opposite way, clean up our hole a little bit. Come on, hole. And there we go. So now we have our hole right through. Okay, so when we come back, we'll go ahead and get our brads into here. Now, remember those little pilot holes that we set? Now it's time to go ahead and put those brads in there, those little finish nails. So I have these upper ones already set. You can see they're already in there. Okay, now what I need to do is go ahead and set the rest. So what I did is just go ahead and get that one started. All right, so I set it in there. Then once it's in there, you can grab a hold of it, kind of push down a little bit, get it set, and then take your needle nose and just push it down the rest of the way till it's to the height that you want. And there we go. Now we got those guys set. So I'll go ahead and finish off this. I'll do the other side, and when we come back, it's getting ready to do the finishing effects. Okay, so at this point, now we need to go ahead and paint the silver on our bracket. So you can see I went ahead and hit all the edges there all the way around, and real easy. I mean, we have our nails in there, but you just go ahead and bring it in like so, and it works out pretty cool. And if you get some on the top, you can dab it or you can leave it, you know, doesn't quite matter. But the cool thing about doing it now instead of later is that when we do our varnish or our oils, it'll go over the top of this as well and kind of tinge it up a little bit. It'll make it look aged. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all painted, make sure I get all my edges done. And when we come back, we'll go ahead and start our oil finish. Okay, so now we have this all painted and whatnot on both sides, and all the edges are done. Okay, now we need to do is go ahead and take the medium walnut, and let me get some on the brush here. And all we're going to do is just stain this wood. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and load it up just like so. Okay, make sure you get all the nooks and crannies and whatnot. And if it goes on the silver, no problem. I mean, look at that. Kind of cool, right? So I'm going to go ahead and stain this all out. And you might want to use gloves for this portion. I'm all out of gloves right now. So, yeah. So my hands are going to get pretty hammered with this by the time we get done. But yeah, if you have some gloves that you can protect your hands, that would be great. Otherwise, uh, penetrating oil gets into your skin, and it takes a little while to get it out. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this. If you notice, I'm not hitting the ends, okay? And the reason why I'm not hitting the ends is because we want to make sure that this is fairly clean. So when you do glue it into wherever you're going to put it, you have a good bond, all right? You have plenty of adhesion. If the oil gets down here on the side, it can hamper with the bond that you're going to have. It's going to want to release from the oil. All right. So let me go ahead and I'll finish this out. And when we come back, we'll go ahead and hit it with the ebony. Okay, we're back. I have the walnut all set. You can notice I went over the top of the bracket a little bit and then dapped it with a cloth. Just took my cloth and dapped it over the top, and it kind of gives it kind of a tarnished look to it. So kind of a cool effect, right? So I got that all coated. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ebony, and let me get this down here. So that's the ebony stain, and I'm just going to get just a little bit on that brush because this stuff's really strong. And I'm just going to go ahead and dap it in here, maybe on the corners just a little bit. And I'm going to do this in sections, okay? So if you've ever looked at old wood, well, here, let me do this real quick. So then after I get that, I'm going to rub it, okay? And it's going to give it kind of that weathered look to it, kind of cool. I mean, it just kind of sets it off. So yeah, if you look at old beams and whatnot, you'll notice like the edges are kind of dark with, a lot of times it was the old creosote that they used on the beams. But I'm just lightly kissing this in certain areas, hitting around the edges, okay? So just around the edges like so. Come in here. Make sure I got that other side there. All right. So we got that. Oop, there goes the brush. Take my rag and I'm going to wipe it and just kind of give it a little bit of a wash look. Now, if it's not quite as dark as you might want it, well, go back in, hit it again. You can do this in phases to get the exact effect that you're looking for. So with that, I was able to darken it down just a little bit more. You can see up there, it's not as dark. And if you keep on rubbing this, it'll light up, it'll blend it out more. And let's see here, let's hit up here a little bit more as well. Actually, I'll really load that one up, show you guys what this looks like. So now it's all loaded up. We'll hit it like so. And there we go. Kind of an old gnarly looking beam that way. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off the other side over here. And we come back, then we can go ahead and get our lamp all mounted in. All right. So at this point, go ahead and take your light, put it through that hole that we went ahead and drilled earlier. And then once it gets up to the area that you want it to sit in, go ahead and take your super glue, and let me get this down in here. Take some super glue and get your light fixture glued into place. Okay, so I'm going to try to this a little bit more. And there we go. Okay, so now I have my light fixture in. Okay, now let me be right back. I'm going to use a little bit of Wonder Juice here. So this is a little bit of accelerant for my super glue. And this stuff's cool. You just go ahead and squirt it on there like that. Bam. And it dries it. Look at that. It dries it all in. So there we go. And there is our beam. All right. Now the white wire right here, we can take a little bit of black paint and paint that out so that when it's laying up against like so, it's not going to stand out as much as a white wire. So I'll go ahead and paint that out with a little bit of the black acrylic, and our beam is ready to go inside our tunnel.
Okay, well, I have my beams all set into place, and yeah, they look pretty cool. Plus, the cool thing is it works too. These are actually giving the whole entire thing that much more strength than everything else. So yeah, figure that one out, huh? You actually build something, model something in, but it actually has a function too. So that's pretty cool. All right, so now we're ready to go ahead and put our roof on this tunnel project. And what I'm gonna do is just use some hot glue, and I'm gonna put a bead across this side and put a dab on each one of those, but I'm not gonna do this side yet. I'm gonna do that after these set, peel it up a little bit, and then hit this. So hopefully this all goes good. So I'll just go ahead and lay in a bead of hot glue here. And try to keep it from drooling all over the place. That's the one thing about hot glue. And then we'll just give a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. And when you put this on, I've pre-fit a few times in practice. And let's see here. It helps if I get it the right direction. So if we put this on right here on the sides and lower it down, hold it. Okay, so we need to hold it and apply pressure like so. It should all stay. So I'm kind of stuck here for a while. So yeah, I'll wait for this to dry. We come back, I'll glue the other side, and we'll see what it looks like.
So I got the lid all on our tunnel. If you notice, there's a little bit of black electrical tape there. And what that is for is that it had a little bit of light pollution that was coming through the edges, just a tad bit of a gap. But you know, if you use the black electrical tape, it works wonders. I mean, that stuff, there is no light getting through it, and it works great. So I just went ahead and hooked the lights up temporarily. And let's go down below and let's see what this thing looks like. And there we go. Pretty cool. So we got that in. Got our lights through there. Let's go ahead and let's venture over here on the other side and take a gander at it. But yeah, turns out cool. So there we go. I think this portion is complete. Now we just need to worry about what we need to build up on top to justify a tunnel. All right, there we go. so there we go. Another video complete. Well, but the project isn't quite complete yet, is it? No, no, we built the tunnel, but we still need to justify why we have a tunnel, especially one with an opening that size. So yeah, we got to build something big right over there, that in that outcropping to make it all come together. But that is coming up. So yeah, pretty cool. Now I'm going to apologize. I know that this has been a long video, and this is one of the things, you know, I've been asked, you know, hey, you know, because I had the other tunnel that was on the layout, and people ask me, can you do a tunnel video? I'd really like to see a tunnel video. Well, we did a tunnel video. But one of the reasons why I've kind of been hesitant with this is because the vision that I had in my head, which was pretty much what we came up with, I knew was going to be labor intensive, and I knew that the video was going to be long. So if you're sticking around and you see this, you're a trooper, man. You've stuck through it. Thank you very much. Now, with this, our next stage that we have to go into is justifying why we have this tunnel. Obviously, right now it's just kind of sitting out in the open, doesn't make much sense. Like, oh, you got a tunnel. So what we need to do is go ahead and create some type of hill, mountain, something to bring it all together. So that is going to be our next adventure in that area. So that's going to be pretty cool. Hopefully I can get it done in one video. It might have to take two, because again, there's this vision inside my head that I've been banging around with, some things that I really want to try. So I'll try to keep my eye on the time this time. Okay, but it should be okay. I don't think it's going to run nearly as long as what this video did. So there we go. So if you like this video, like it, share it with others, and please subscribe to my channel. And remember, we still have this, which is the Facebook group, and that, which is the Instagram group, and we have the Patreon group, and we have the Buy Me a Coffee app. And just a little bit of props for one of my Patreons out there, William, who he got me a microphone, and that's really cool. So hopefully my sound has improved. I don't know if it's improved yet, because I haven't put this into my editor all the way and gone through all the clips. But some of the clips that I've seen on my camera or my phone have, yeah, it seems like sound quality is definitely better. So yeah, definitely a cool thing. All right, so next time on Boone's Slot Car Garage, well, tell you what, we're definitely going to be working on this, but there might be something that I slide in before we go working on that. So stick around, and I'll see you guys later. Hi, this is Boone's Slot Car Garage. Let's do this.